In this video, I'm going to talk about integration between Power BI and Power Pages. So, the goal is to have a Power BI report rendered in a Power Pages site. Now, remember, both these technologies are different. Power BI is a data visualization technology, and Power Pages is basically to render pages to a website. Okay. Now, Power BI, you can embed the Power BI reports in Power Pages page. Okay. Now, there are different types of access which you need to decide before you embed the Power BI report. Now, there is an embed for customers, there is an embed for organization, and there is a publish to web. Now, publish to web is anyone on internet can access the report and data. So this is a concept from Power BI. So if in Power BI, if you want to publish the content to a global audience, okay, and if you don't worry about the data or the content within that data, then this is the right option, and you don't even need license for it. But the catch is your data will be exposed to the internet. Okay. Embed for customers and embed for organization is basically, like when your consumer who are part of your Azure Active Directory, but then either they have a license or they do not have a license. Okay, so if that is the situation, then you need to consider one of this option, which we are going to cover in this video. Now, liquid tag parameter. Now I'm going to demonstrate to you using the liquid tags. Okay, so not from the user interface, but by going into the backend of Power Pages and then embedding those liquid tags. Now, the liquid tag parameters, there are a couple of things which is mandatory. One is authentication type and the path. There is an optional component called as rules as well. And then within path, you can append OData filter as well. So these are like kind of optional, but authentication type and path are mandatory. Now, authentication type will be either of this. One is anonymous, second is AAD, Azure Active Directory, and the third is Power BI embedded. Now, the difference between these three type is anonymous is basically anyone can access that report. So any report which is like published to web, which is open for all, you can use those reports over here. AAD is basically your user belongs to the Azure Active Directory and have a valid license, Power BI license to consume those reports. Power BI embedded, again, it's all the consumer are part of Azure Active Directory, but then they need not have a Power BI Pro license to access the Power BI reports. Now, there are multiple ways. Now, I told you, right? First, you need to specify the liquid tag and then Power BI and then authentication underscore type and then type the authentication type. Either it is anonymous, AAD, or Power BI embedded. And then you specify the path. Now, you can also use roles within this syntax if you have something called as role-based security within the Power BI report. Now, that's a topic for a different day. We are not going to cover that, but the goal of this exercise is to have a Power BI report embedded within your Power Pages site. Now, there are multiple settings which you need to do. So there is a Power Platform settings, there is a Power Pages setting, Azure AD Entra ID settings, Power BI admin settings. Okay. Now, Power Platform settings. Within Power Platform settings, you need to declare that, hey, you're going to use Power BI components. Okay. So this is like one of the setting which is available within Power Platform. Now, remember, some of the settings are mandatory and some of the settings are optional, but I'm showing you all the settings related to Power BI within the Power Platform interface. Within Power Pages, you need to go into the back end and enable the Power BI visualization, Power BI embedded service. Now, the difference between this is Power BI embedded service will allow you to use the modern workspaces, which is available within the Power BI service. The next step is to select the workspace which houses the reports which needs to be embedded, and that's it. So that's the setting from Power Pages side. From an Azure AD side, you need to create a security group basically, and then assign the Power Pages application. Like when you provision a Power Pages site, there's always an application which gets created in the backend in Azure Active Directory. So that's basically a service principal. So you need to assign that service principal to the group. Now, why this step is important? Because this act as a link between the Power Pages and Power BI. Okay, so it under Power BI admin settings, you need to do a couple of settings, like you need to enable embed content in apps, publish to web, allow service principals to use Power BI API. Now, remember in the previous step, we created an Azure AD security group. Now, this act as a link between the Power BI and the Power Pages. Okay, so this allows an API of Power BI to access the Power Pages interface. Now, uh, from a Power Platform settings perspective, you need to enable Power BI components. And this components basically talks about, allow creation and usage of Power BI component within your Power Platform environment. And then there are other settings. Now, some are mandatory, some are optional. So it depends on what is your use cases. Okay. Now, here one of the setting is allow information sharing between this environment and Power BI Workspace in other geographic regions. So if that is your use case, then you need to turn this on. From a Power Pages setting perspective, now when you start adding those Power BI report, it will prompt you that Power BI is not enabled for this portal. Then how do you enable that? You need to go into the backend of Power Pages site and then enable these two switches, Power BI Visualization, Power BI Embedded Service. And then from here, you can add those workspaces which you want the report to get rendered. Here is a screenshot of the same. Under Power BI setting, you need to go into a couple of places. One is publish to web, if that is what you desire to publish to web reports within the Power Pages site. Uh, then you need to have a allow service principal to use the Power BI API. This needs to be enabled, and you need to add a security group. Now remember, this security group we need to create in Azure Active Directory, which I'm going to explain you in the next slide. But this is important step because this step will grant access of the Power BI service principal application to the Power uh, BI service. Now here in Azure AD, you need to create a group, and then within that group, you need to add the service principal of that specific portal. So I'm going to walk you through all these things in the demo. So in the demo, now if you see here, this is the Power Pages site. Now the first thing what we will do is like, we will try to embed the Power Pages site. So first we'll create a page and we will call this as Power BI reports. Okay, so this is the page. Now here, the first thing what we do is, we see a component, we click on Power BI, and then we start configuring all those component. But I'm not going to show you this part. What I'm going to show you is like going into the backend and start adding those relevant codes. Okay. Now there is a syntax attached to it. So let me first go into the edit code and show you how to add the uh, the liquid tag for rendering Power BI reports. Now it's a simple step. You just need to follow some syntax and then fill those values with the relevant path and uh, authentication type. Okay, so let me close this Copilot and let me put a div. So this is enclosed in a div. Okay, now here you just need to put a liquid tag. Now opening curly braces, closing curly braces, percentage sign. This is how we start with. Okay. Now after this, we will type in Power BI. So Power BI, and then we need to type two things: authentication underscore type and the path. So authentication underscore type. Okay. So we need to type the authentication underscore type and the path. If we get these two things, yes, we can render the Power BI report. Okay. Now I will just explain you with all the three different types, but let's now go into say the configuration of the Power BI integration. Now, first thing, what you need to do is you need to go into admin center. So I'm in the admin center. So let me take you to the admin center, and here in the environments, you need to navigate to the correct environment. Okay, so let's say I'm in Girish Dev. Okay, so I will go into the settings, and under settings, let's say under features, do we have anything related to Power BI? Okay, so let me search for BI. Okay. If you see here there is a setting called as Power BI components. So these are the settings you need to selectively turn on and off based on your requirement. So this is the first place in Power Platform Admin Center. Okay. Then we need to go into the back end of Power Pages. So how do you navigate to Power Pages? Is go to resources, go to the Power Pages site, and navigate to your correct Power Pages site's backend. Okay, so for me, the site name is Movember. So let me navigate to that. So this is that site. I will click on manage, and then here I need to go here and then turn this on. Now I've already turned this on because it might take a while for you to, like turn this on and then wait for 15 minutes for the settings to be applied. So you need to turn this switch is on. So Power BI Visualization, Power BI Embedded Service. And after you turn on this, you need to select the workspaces. Now, concept of Power BI is that Power BI reports are housed in workspaces. Now you can have multiple workspaces. Now here I have two workspaces, test workspace and PP workspace. Now I have selected test workspace. Okay, so all my report will be in test workspace. But if you think your report is in PP workspace, you can select that, or alternatively, you can deselect that. Okay, now for me, all the reports are housed in test workspace. So that's the setting which I have done. Now, you may not see the workspaces over here immediately. It might take 15-20 minutes to appear once you turn on the switch. So wait for that, be patient. And then from a Power Pages site, all the settings are done. Other thing what you need to do is, like, first thing, go into the backend of your Azure Active Directory. So here you go into, say, Microsoft Entra ID, and then here you can create a group. Okay, so I have already created a group, okay, which I'll show you, which I have called it as PBI embedded group. Now here it's a security group basically. So create that security group and add a member. Okay. Now which member you need to add? You need to add the service principal which is associated with the portal. So remember this portal which you have created, while creating this portal, it might have created something in the backend called as a service principal. Now you need to add that. Okay, so I've already added it, but I'll show you if how to find that service principles. If you click on add members, okay, you will see whole bunch of things. Now if you just type portal, so it will show you all the portal related service principle. Now this is all the portal related service principle of my old sites. Okay, now you need to select a specific for your website, and then that's it. You have created a PB embedded group, you have added that service principle. Now, navigate to the Power BI, and then within Power BI, you might be having some sort of a report. Okay. Now, here there is one report. Then here there is another report. Okay. Now, remember this report is published to web. Now, anyone can see it. You don't need a license. It is open for all. This one is only for Azure Active Directory users who have a valid license. Okay. So, this is what my use case is. Now, what I'm going to do first is I will show you there are some settings which you need to do at a Power BI side. So, once you are in Power BI workspace, you can navigate into the settings and then go into the admin portal. Under admin portal, I will show you there are some specific settings which you need to do. So, one is if it is related to publish to web. So, maybe if I let's say publish to web. Okay, so here in publish to web, you need to enable this if you want to render the report related to publish to web. And specifically, you can have embed code, but I'm not going to go into that. Second thing, second settings is related to basically embedding the content into the app. So if you click on embed, then under developer setting, you have embed content in app. You need to turn this on and then assign that security group which we just created. Okay, so we have created that PBI embedded group. So you need to select that and then you need to click on apply. Okay. Other thing, what you need to do is you need to find service principal. Okay. Once you find the service principal under developer setting, it says allow service principal to use Power BI API. Now this is the connection point. You need to turn this on, and again you need to specify the security group. Now, once all the settings are done, then your Power BI report can be easily embedded. Now, I explained to you there are two scenarios. One is this is published to this report is open for all, and this is just related to Azure Active Directory. Now, forget about Power BI integration. Let's do one thing. Now, this is published to web report. So let's see embed report published to web. Let's see what happens when you do something, Now, here there is an iframe. Okay, so I copy this iframe. Okay, let me copy this iframe. Okay, now I've got an iframe code. Okay, let's go into Power BI. Okay, let me cancel this for a moment and um, let me show you another option. Like here, if I have a component, now if I embed an iframe, okay, now if you see here iframe, here it's asked for embed URL. It just needs an embed URL. Now I'll copy paste this code. Now it comes with iframe tag, so I'll remove all the iframe tag because I just want a URL. Okay, so now this is that complete URL. Okay, and I don't want this iframe code. Okay, now if you see, this is that embed URL code. Now let me say okay. Okay, and let me remove this for time being. Okay, save this. Okay, I can't save this, so that's fine. I'll just sync this up. So what we have done, we haven't used any Power BI liquid tag. We have just taken the iframe and we rendered it within your the Power BI Power Pages site. And once I sync this, you can see the embedded report. Okay. Now let me run this page and show it to you. So this is option number one. Okay, so we haven't used any liquid tag code, we just copied the embed code. Okay, this is option one. Okay, now let's go into option number two using the backend code. Okay, so let me close this. Let me go back here again, go to the edit code, open Visual Studio Code. Yep. Now if you go into the Visual Studio Code, let me close this. Yep. Yep. So here, what we are going to do is we are going to add a div tag. Okay, and the same code which we just created, Power BI authentication type. Now here, what I'm going to do is go into this report and try to get the URL. Okay, now this is the report URL. So I'm copy this. Okay, till report section and go into the code and go into the path, paste it. And under authentication type, I will say anonymous. Now let me sync this. Now the first option which we tried was using an iframe code. Remember, there was no liquid tag attached to it. Now this is the second option. Now in the second option, we have used a liquid code. Now when you put a liquid code, you see the design interface. You just see this Power BI control. Okay. Now here, let me sync this and then preview the site. Now, this is the second way through which you can embed the report. Now, the third option, what we are going to talk about is with regards to AAD. Okay, so let me first clear the code. Okay, let me just remove this div tag and let me use this div tag over here. Okay, now remember the syntax is very simple. You just need to put a curly braces and then put a percentage. Okay, and then Power BI and then authentication underscore type, and then I'll just copy this from here and the path. Now for Azure Active Directory related reports, what we need to do is we have a second report over here. Now here, if you see the report, This is the report which is only accessible to internal users. So I'll just copy this URL, and then try to put it in the code. Now I can just put till report section because I don't want the other filters to be applied to it. However, you can use a filter or data related filters. Okay. Now this is that complete URL till report section, and I'll just save this. Once it is saved, just sync it. Once this is loaded, now you can see the report. Now this is Power BI authentication type as AAD. The previous report which I showed you was authentication type as anonymous. So any external user will not be able to see this unless they have a Power BI license attached to their account. So that's it, folks. This is all about embedding Power BI report within Power Pages site. We have seen three different methods. One is we didn't use the interface or didn't use the liquid tag, but then we took the script tag directly from a published web URL. And then try to embed that in the Power Pages site. Second option, we used authentication type as anonymous and then put a manual path. And in the third method, we did authentication type as AAD and used the Power BI report, which is only specifically usable by the Power BI license holders. So these are the multiple ways through which we can embed Power BI reports in Power Pages. Thanks for watching.